The rain had arrived long before sunset. It drifted gently across the evening sky, washing over the old stones that surrounded the wandering inn. Warm light glowed behind its windows. The lantern hanging beside the wooden door swayed ever so slightly in the breeze. Thin wisps of smoke rose quietly from the tall stone chimney, disappearing into the cool night air. Nothing hurried here. The rain fell at its own peaceful rhythm. The fire inside waited patiently. Even the silence seemed to have found a home. For anyone passing through the ancient forest, the wandering inn would have appeared like a quiet promise, a place where weary travelers could finally set down their burdens, a place where every evening ended beside a warm fire. Tonight, its windows were glowing just as warmly as they always had, as though the inn itself had been expecting someone to arrive. The old wooden door opened slowly. Inside, the fire crackled softly beneath the stone hearth. The scent of cedar wood, old books, and freshly brewed herbal tea filled the room. The innkeeper looked up. A gentle smile appeared. "Welcome back, traveler." There was no surprise in the greeting, only the quiet comfort of recognizing a familiar face. Without asking, the innkeeper poured another cup of warm tea. Steam curled gently between the dancing firelight, while the rain continued to whisper against the old windows. For a little while, neither of you spoke. Sometimes the kindest conversations begin with silence. At last, the innkeeper stood and walked toward the tallest bookshelf. Hundreds of journals rested there. Each held the memory of a different world. His hand paused before lifting a single ivory journal. Its leather had softened with time. At the center of its cover rested a faded golden crown, almost forgotten, but not quite. The journal was placed gently upon the wooden table. "There are kingdoms," the innkeeper said softly, "that disappear beneath war, and there are kingdoms swallowed by the sea. But once in a very great while, there is a kingdom that simply becomes forgotten, not because it was destroyed, not because it was cursed, but because the world simply stopped telling its story." The faded ribbon was untied. The old pages opened with a quiet whisper. The scent of aged parchment, cedar wood, and dried flowers drifted softly through the warm room. Somewhere beyond the rain, beyond the passing years, beyond even memory itself, morning was waiting. The first thing anyone noticed was the light. Not because it was bright, but because it never seemed to change. It was the gentle light of early morning, warm as fresh bread, soft as a quiet promise, stretching peacefully across the valleys with neither haste nor end. There was no blazing noon, no crimson sunset, only a peaceful dawn that seemed content to remain forever. Beyond a winding forest road stood two great gates carved from white limestone. Time had softened their edges, yet they remained graceful, as though every stone had been placed there with patience rather than power. Pale green ivy climbed quietly along the pillars. White blossoms bloomed between the ancient stones. No guards stood watch, no banners fluttered overhead. Even so, the gates never felt abandoned. They simply waited, as though they still believed someone would one day return. The old road continued beyond them. Its smooth stones had once welcomed countless travelers. Now wildflowers grew between each step. Morning dew rested on every petal, catching the golden light like tiny stars scattered across the earth. The air carried the fragrance of fresh grass, white lilies, and rain that seemed to belong to another time. No merchants called from distant markets, no horses crossed the bridges, no children laughed beneath the trees. Only a gentle breeze wandered quietly through the empty streets beyond the gates. The innkeeper's voice became softer. Once, these gates welcomed travelers from every corner of the world. Artists, scholars, gardeners, cartographers, musicians. They did not come seeking riches. They came because this kingdom reminded them that life did not always need to move quickly. The pages of the journal turned gently. They stayed for the mornings, for the flowers, for conversations beneath the old oak trees, and for the bell that greeted every sunrise. For a brief moment, it almost felt as though that distant bell still echoed somewhere beyond the hills, not loudly, only as a memory, barely carried upon the wind. Beyond the gates, the road curved gently toward a city of white stone, and little by little, the forgotten kingdom began to awaken once more. The road led quietly into the heart of the kingdom. With every step, another peaceful corner revealed itself, as though the city had been patiently waiting for someone to walk its streets once again. The streets were paved with smooth white stone, polished not by wealth, but by generations of gentle footsteps. On either side stood graceful homes built from pale limestone and warm cedar wood. Their windows remained slightly open, welcoming the endless morning breeze. Flower boxes overflowed with white roses, lavender, and tiny blue blossoms. They continued to bloom without asking whether anyone remained to admire them. The gardens had grown naturally, yet never wildly. Every climbing vine seemed to know exactly where it belonged. Every tree reached quietly toward the endless morning sky. The innkeeper spoke softly. This kingdom was never built to impress the world. It was built to make every traveler feel at home. The traveler imagined walking those streets alone. There were no hurried footsteps, no distant conversations, no wagons crossing the stone bridges, only the gentle rustling of leaves overhead and the quiet song of flowing water. A narrow canal followed the road. Its water was so clear that every passing cloud appeared perfectly upon its surface. Stone bridges crossed the canals one after another. Each bridge carried its own quiet story. One was carved with flowering branches, another with resting birds. One displayed an open book, another a lantern whose tiny flame had been carefully carved into the marble centuries before. The craftsmanship spoke not of kings, nor of great victories. It spoke of people who believed beautiful things deserved to be made slowly. Soon the marketplace came into view. Wooden stalls still stood beneath cream-colored canvas roofs. Glass bottles rested neatly upon their shelves. Hand-woven baskets waited exactly where they had once been placed. Bundles of dried herbs still hung beneath the wooden beams. Nothing looked abandoned. Everything looked patient, as though the merchants had stepped away only moments before sunrise. The traveler stopped beside a small bakery. Above the old doorway hung a weathered wooden sign. Most of its letters had faded with time. Only one word remained: "Welcome." The innkeeper smiled. They believed that every road should end with kindness. No traveler should ever arrive feeling like a stranger. And perhaps, he looked quietly into the dancing fire, perhaps that is why this inn has always reminded me of their kingdom. For a long while, nothing more was said. Sometimes silence remembers more than words ever can. Far beyond the quiet rooftops, a tall tower slowly appeared against the endless morning sky. Its ancient bell remained perfectly still, waiting as it had always waited. The bell tower remained in the distance, but before reaching it, the road curved gently toward a building unlike any other in the kingdom. Its walls were carved from smooth white limestone. Tall, arched windows welcomed the endless morning light. Flowering ivy climbed quietly across the ancient stone. Old oak trees stretched their branches above a peaceful courtyard. There were no banners, no statues of kings, only a simple inscription carved above the great wooden doors. Every story is a home that time cannot take away. The traveler stood quietly before the entrance. Even before stepping inside, the place felt strangely familiar, as though forgotten memories had been waiting patiently behind those doors. The innkeeper turned another page. The people of this kingdom believed that books should never belong to shelves alone. They believed stories belonged to those willing to carry them forward. The great oak doors opened without a sound. Warm morning light poured through endless rows of towering bookshelves. Thousands of books rested peacefully on polished wooden shelves that stretched farther than the eye could follow. Some were bound in deep green leather, others in faded blue cloth. Many carried no title at all. Dust drifted slowly through golden beams of sunlight, not neglected dust, but the gentle dust of quiet places where time itself had learned to whisper. Wooden ladders rested patiently beside the shelves. Reading tables stood beneath tall windows. A porcelain teacup waited beside an open book. Its pages had never been turned, as though the reader had simply stepped away, promising to return before the tea grew cold. The innkeeper smiled softly. They believed that forgetting begins long before a building falls. It begins when stories are no longer shared, when names are no longer spoken, when memories become too quiet to reach another generation. The traveler wandered slowly between the shelves. Each book told the story of an ordinary life. A gardener who planted white roses every spring, a baker who welcomed strangers before sunrise, a child who watched birds by the river every afternoon, an old astronomer who named stars after the flowers growing outside his observatory. None of them had changed the world. None had become heroes. Yet together they had become the heart of an entire kingdom. Near the center of the library stood a circular reading room beneath a magnificent glass dome. Morning sunlight filled the room with quiet warmth. At its center rested a single empty chair. Beside it lay one unopened journal. Its cover bore no title, only a small golden crown, the very same faded crown resting upon the journal now lying between you and the innkeeper. The traveler looked toward it, but somehow already understood. Some books are not meant to be opened, they are meant to be remembered. Outside, the morning breeze stirred once again, and somewhere beyond the library, a distant bell waited patiently for the dawn that had never truly ended.
Leaving the library behind, the traveler followed a narrow stone path that climbed gently toward the highest hill in the kingdom. With every step, the morning breeze became a little cooler. White flowers swayed softly along the hillside. Beyond them, the entire kingdom unfolded beneath the endless dawn. Marble bridges crossed quiet canals. Gardens bloomed between rows of ivory homes. The crystal river shimmered beneath the gentle morning light. Everything remained exactly as it had always been, peaceful, patient, waiting. At the summit stood the bell tower. It was neither the tallest building nor the grandest. Its beauty came from something much quieter. The tower had been built from pale limestone. Time had softened its colors into warm shades of ivory and gold. Climbing roses embraced its ancient walls. Small birds rested beneath its roof without fear. At the very top hung a single bronze bell. The years had darkened its surface, yet its quiet elegance remained untouched. The innkeeper spoke almost in a whisper. Every morning, before the first baker lit the oven, before the first gardener watered the flowers, before the first child opened a window, this bell welcomed the sunrise. It reminded the kingdom that every new day was a gift. The traveler looked up. The bell hung perfectly still. No rope moved, no hands reached toward it. Only the gentle wind passed quietly through the open tower. The silence here felt different, not empty, not lonely, almost respectful, as though even the breeze understood that this was a place where memories preferred to speak softly. The innkeeper turned another page. No one remembers who rang the bell for the very last time. Perhaps it was an old keeper, perhaps a young apprentice, perhaps simply someone who loved the morning What matters is that someone cared enough to ring it. The traveler slowly climbed the worn spiral staircase. Each step echoed gently against the ancient stone walls. Sunlight entered through narrow arched windows. Long ribbons of golden light stretched across the staircase. At last, the traveler reached the top. The bronze bell stood quietly beneath the open sky. Tiny wildflowers had found their way between the old stones. Life had continued, even here. The traveler reached out, not to ring the bell, only to rest a hand upon its cool bronze surface. For a single moment, the breeze became just a little stronger. Deep within the bell, a single, almost silent note answered, so soft that it could hardly be heard. Not enough to awaken a city, not enough to echo across the valley, only enough to remind the world that it had once been heard. The innkeeper smiled gently. Perhaps that is all memory truly asks of us, not to shout, only to be heard one more time. Far below, the forgotten kingdom rested peacefully beneath its endless morning. It no longer waited to be discovered. It no longer wished to become famous again. It only hoped that somewhere, someone would remember.
For a little while, neither you nor the innkeeper spoke. The fire continued its quiet conversation with the old stones of the hearth. Outside, the rain fell with the same gentle rhythm that had welcomed the evening. The innkeeper rested both hands upon the ivory journal. Its pages had grown still. The faded ribbon lay quietly across the cover once more. With great care, the journal was closed. Its soft whisper echoed gently through the warm room, almost like the final note of a familiar song. You looked toward the dancing fire. Somehow, the room felt different now, not because anything had changed, but because one more forgotten corner of the world had quietly found its place within the heart. The innkeeper smiled. Many people believe that kingdoms disappear when their walls crumble, but stone is rarely the first thing we lose. It is memory. When stories are no longer told, when names are no longer spoken, when no one remembers the road, that is when a kingdom begins to fade. You looked once more toward the journal. Then, does that kingdom still exist? The innkeeper's smile became softer. I believe it does. As long as someone opens this journal, as long as someone listens, as long as someone carries its story home, the morning still shines upon its gardens, the river still reflects its bridges, and somewhere the old bell still greets the dawn. Outside the rain-covered windows, the ancient forest rested peacefully beneath the night. Somewhere beyond forgotten roads, beyond maps that no longer remembered where to look, the White Kingdom remained beneath its endless morning, not waiting to be discovered, only waiting to be remembered. The innkeeper carefully returned the ivory journal to the highest shelf. It rested once more among hundreds of other journals, some well-loved, some rarely opened, Others, still waiting patiently for the evening when their stories would finally be told. You finished the last sip of tea. It was warm enough to comfort, quiet enough to linger. The innkeeper gently adjusted the lantern beside the fireplace. Its golden light danced softly across the shelves. Then, with a peaceful smile, he said, "Another story has found its way home." Silence returned. Not an empty silence, but the comfortable silence shared between old friends who no longer needed many words. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Inside, the fire continued to burn. And somewhere, beyond the pages of another unopened journal, a new story was already waiting. Until our paths cross again, may your heart always find its way to places where forgotten stories still remember your name. Good night, traveler.